as you heard before in the last panel, at this point we're going to talk about what we have in some research discovered to be more recent trends in military recruiting tactics. And many of us have been doing this for a very long time, but we might not really be up so much on what the recruiters are trying now to get to students and kids. So here's an overview of what we'll cover now. This is purely focused on what seem to be the major trends that cover counter-recruitment activists need to be aware of and stay up to date on. So you're not going to hear about all the things like, oh, they go to schools and they go to career fairs. We all know that. These are some things that you may not be aware of. If you have questions or comments during the presentation, please save them for the end, and if we have time, we can discuss. But remember, after this, we're going to be going into our breakouts, and we're going to be taking what we get from this presentation and the ones before, and that's where we're really going to get into the discussion of what we can do about it. So if we don't have time for discussion after, which we won't, don't worry. Okay?
So I'm going to try to give a few highlights of some of the shortfalls that the recruiting landscape is experiencing. So the Navy is having issues because they need a whole lot more sailors, and they need a whole lot more sailors because they're doing this huge fleet buildup from something like 286 ships to 355. The Air Force, the Navy, and the Marines are all short about 25% of the fighter pilots that they need. And the Army had set a goal of 80,000 new recruits for fiscal year 2017, but they had to, so fiscal year 17, and they had to reduce it because they realized after 6 months into it that they weren't going to make it, so they cut it down to 76,500, I think.
Thank you.
So some of the challenges that they're experiencing is in the fact that there's a low unemployment right now. They're competing, because there's low unemployment, they're all competing for the same technical talent. A lot of them, 70% or so, are ineligible to serve either due to drug use, obesity, mental problems, all of which they're bumping up the waivers for those issues that you'll see later in the presentation.
Okay, so now let's talk about what's happening on social media. I'll start with YouTube. Here we have what I call a fake real service member vlog, which is a video log, like a blog but with video. The title of this one, in case you can't see it, is 5 Reasons to Not Join the Military. Maybe someone considering enlistment, yet skeptical, is online looking for the cons, since the recruiters, popular culture, games, etc. have already been pushing all the pros. And they do a quick search and they find this guy's blog, or many like it. And when they start looking at his menu of regularly added vlogs, he's updating them all the time, they see many videos like these. Okay, so have you figured this out yet? Who is this guy? Next one. Okay, so there are a lot of these very similar YouTube vlogs that to most people they'll look like just regular service members sharing their ups and downs. They vlog about things they don't like about military life. They sometimes say, oh, they wish they hadn't have joined. But then when you watch the videos, they present a very positive picture overall. So there's lots and lots of videos, but the ones that feature things that people like really outweigh the things that they say they don't like. Okay? You see lots of videos of people getting into great shape. You see lots of videos about people buying their first car and all the fun they're having overseas. And so they all have multiple social media accounts that encourage the viewers to follow. So they invite their YouTube viewers to contact them in the comments or by email, and they get to talk to them that way. And if you see, one of them only has the first one I showed, he only had 1,000 views on YouTube. These have a lot more. But remember that they invite them to communicate on other platforms like Instagram and Snapchat, which are incredibly popular. So it gets exponential, the amount of exposure these things get. Okay?
Are these guys all recruiters?
This is slide 7 right now. Right?
Are those
Okay,
guys
go
all
back.
recruiters? Sorry. Are those guys all recruiters?
No, they're not all recruiters, but let me read my next comment here. So these blogs usually start with something like, heads up guys, I don't speak for the military, this is just my own opinion. However, let's be real. Pat Elder, who I think everybody knows, he put it this way in a 2017 article. He said, thousands of these videos have been produced in the last year with millions of viewers. Department of Defense regulations are pretty clear. They say, quote, no commander should be indifferent to conduct that, if allowed to proceed unchecked, would destroy the effectiveness of his or her unit. These videos, it stands to reason, are officially sanctioned. Furthermore, it's ludicrous to think this volume of high-quality film is a result of the independent work of an individual soldier during their spare time. Every second of every video, including all the images, gestures, words, and underlying meanings, are carefully vetted by the recruiting command, end quote. Okay? So here we have social media use on what we call Generation Z. They're also known as millennials, or centennials. Sorry, millennials is so old already. So centennials.
I have kids that are millennials.
So you're really old.
I'm really old.
Centennials are the generation born roughly between the mid-90s to the mid-2000s, so now they're between 10 and 23 years old. And the target group for the Army, just for one of the branches, are on average 21 years old. They are using 5 devices and have an 8-second attention span. So these social media formats are how kids are getting their information. Okay, so if you don't know those little logos yet, you should get to know them. Okay, the top one is Snapchat. What's the second one, everybody? Instagram. The third one? YouTube. Fourth one, that's easy. Twitter. And then Facebook, which you can see is not too popular with young people. Okay? Yeah, sorry. We're all young, but they're even younger. Right, okay. So, no, I gotta say something. So, yeah, next one, please. So although Snapchat is even more popular with Generation Z, I was able to find better recent data on Instagram, which is nearly as popular. These data that you see here, I hope everyone can read it, were compiled by a private PR company that's trying to get contracts with military branches and contractors to help them increase social media presence. So they show these stats to the different branches, I think, to kind of get them in competition. And the stats shown here are from a report dated March of this year that shows changes in Instagram use by the branches from November of 2016 to March 2018. So just for an example, look at the Army, 762 posts. Which is up from 143 just 15 months ago. That's a 433% increase. The Army has more than 1 million followers on Instagram, and this is up from just about half of that during that time, et cetera, et cetera. So all the branches are really focusing on increasing their social media presence. All of the branches have multiple accounts across all social media platforms. Okay, so here's some of the other platforms you can see. Okay, and then next, Facebook. Okay, so all of the branches have so many different Facebook pages and groups, it's really impossible to count because the pages range from official sites managed by officials at the Pentagon or their contractors to local recruiting stations to just individual recruiters' pages, and within each branch, individual departments, units, regiments, communities, and so on. So we saw before that Facebook is not nearly so popular with the centennial generation, but you think about the influencers like teachers, counselors, parents, grandparents. Those people are more on Facebook, so this is really an important way to get to the influencers. Okay, so next we're going to talk about how recruiting is supported by some newer developments in high-tech gaming technology. Okay, so who here has ever seen America's Army, the official Army video game? Okay, so I like that quote at the top. I think that's kind of relevant for what's going on today in the news with the school shootings. Okay, so a new version of America's Army was released a couple years ago, and according to one special, can you push pause? We'll get to it in a minute. According to one special ops veteran writing online, quote, over a decade since the initial release, America's Army video game has seen over 8 million accounts created. That's 1.5 million for the latest version alone, as well as 212 million hours representing some 3.6 billion rounds of online gameplay. That's 3.6 billion. The Army has apparently found enough traction to continue support and release the game on additional platforms beyond the PC. You want to play just a second? Oh, all right. I don't know. It's okay. No, it's not. So we found out after we got here that Senecal doesn't do video streaming, and so it's my mistake. I thought that when we had it in our presentation it wouldn't be streaming live, but it is, so we're going to just have to skip through past the videos. But if you haven't seen these videos, as horrifying as they kind of are, I really encourage you to check them out.
Would a hotspot work?
We don't have time, but thank you. Yeah, if we had time, that would be good. But anyway, you get the idea. They're first-person shooters. They're super realistic. They get your adrenaline going. Yeah, you never seem to get killed. Yeah.
And are you going to share this after the conference?
Yeah, we'll definitely put out some type of easy-to-access version at some point.
Can you give us a list of those, or is this just the one?
There's more coming up.
Okay.
So just, we'll send out, I'd like to share this presentation once I get it in more shareable format, just for the public. Okay. All right, so one of the things that the counter-recruitment movement has focused on with some real success is the issue of protecting student privacy. According to the Parent Coalition for Student Privacy, between 2014 and 2017, 123 laws about how kids' information gathered online may and may not be used were passed in the states. The Air Force, this is the first thing I've seen like this, sees at least one way of getting around this roadblock. So it's been collecting data to develop an online game for high school kids where kids would play anonymously, identified only by an IP address. So the way they see it, they could collect data without technically violating players' privacy. So that's something that I think we really need to watch out for and get active on. So when we get into the breakout groups and we're talking about this, this is good to remember. And then, next slide. Okay, so this, we can't play the video, but basically you guys have probably seen these trailers or vans they drive around and they set them up where there are kids and they go inside and play video games, etc. So now it's moving into virtual reality. And I don't know if anybody here has ever experienced virtual reality. So you can see in the picture, they put goggles on you, they put these really good quality headphones, and they put some kind of pack over your body so you feel the vibration. And then once it's going, it's like you're inside the environment. It surrounds you 360 degrees with sound and feelings, and it's incredibly effective because you know you're not really there, but it's the closest thing to feeling like you're there. So they've got this thing called the NNOMY, driving around the country. It's In part, as you heard in the earlier presentation, they're really trying to get people who are interested in STEM fields into the Navy and the other branches. So I want to read you something about the success they've had with the NNOMYs. Okay. The Navy says the VR efforts, VR is short for virtual reality, the Navy says the VR efforts are indeed generating leads among potential recruits. At the Winter X Games in Aspen, where the Nimitz was stationed, the Navy saw a 48% increase in leads. At the Army-Navy football game in Baltimore, the Navy saw a 126% increase in leads. In the first 2 months after the Navy's VR efforts began, leads of potential recruits have more than doubled compared to the previous 2 years combined. So you can see this is very powerful. And according to the same article, well, VR is recruiting is a first for the Navy. Other arms of the military have ventured into it as well. The Air Force, for example, has sent out free VR viewers. So, you know, people think, oh, virtual reality, it's expensive, not everybody can buy these things. Well, they're sending them out free. They let people get immersed inside 360-degree special ops experiences.
Paid for by taxpayer dollars.
Exactly. Right. This stuff is so expensive, right? So on the right, that was sort of a little sample of the virtual reality, which of course isn't really VR because we don't all have our headsets on. The Army recently worked with UCLA with their Army ROTC to inspire people to enlist. Students from the current Bruin Battalion, I guess that's the ROTC battalion there, appeared in the Army's first VR recruitment video, which can be viewed through nearly any viewer. Okay, so there's a preview there, which we can't see, sorry, but we're short on time anyway. Okay, so now, Libby.
So I'm going to talk a little bit about how the military has been lowering standards, offering higher enlistment bonuses and more flexible contracts. They've been granting more waivers for drug use and mental health issues. I believe they now will give you a medical waiver for bipolar disorder, depression, and cutting, provided that those problems have been resolved. They're granting a lot more waivers for physical fitness, particularly if you show potential in electronics, computer programming. So basically, you can be fat, stoned, and
Have mental health challenges.
yeah. But if you can make a drone fly, I mean, you're cool, right? You're good. And they've bumped up the bonuses quite a bit, and they're offering now what they call a golden and silver ticket in the Navy and 2-year contracts in the Army. So as you can see, on the left, the Category 4 recruits, so those are the people that don't quite pass the ASVAB. They've been granting
They're in the lowest 30%.
lowest 30%. They're accepting more recruits. You can see how it's bumped up to 2017. It really went up. And the same with on the right. You see the bonuses. Those that receive bonuses, how much they've gone up.
Sorry, Libby, the gold and silver contract.
So that's here.
Right here. So the way it was supposed to work, I'd never heard of this before, but the way it's supposed to work is the golden ticket holders could return to active duty within a year of the release, and silver tickets could get active duty status within 2 years of release. My understanding is it allows you to leave for a short period of time and come back and kind of start where you were. Again, it's something they're trying to, they low unemployment, they're trying to compete with business, I mean, some companies offer sabbaticals, so maybe it's in a kind of a way to do the sabbatical. But it's really a trick because it's still 8 years. So the Army's 2-year thing is kind of a trick because it's still 8 years.
You mean 2 years active, 6 years reserve? Is that what you mean? Yeah.
And then as I mentioned earlier, they're granting a lot more mental health waivers. Mood disorders, again, it's by discretion. You have to get a medical waiver. They don't just take you. You have to get a medical waiver. But like for the year October 1st through October 31st, 2017, active duty Army issued waivers to 738 recruits with a history of mood disorders and 49 with a history of self-mutilation. I mean, they're not huge numbers, but it causes you to kind of think, you know. I don't know. I mean, I don't know.
And then one thing it says is that for those with the mood disorders and self-mutilation histories, the ones that were not accepted into the regular Army were actually accepted into the Reserve and National Guard.
Cool. So they've got some newer tricks too across the country, different ideas. In Chicago, they're doing this Learn, Plan, Succeed thing. I'm not exactly, you know, Jesus probably knows more about it. We can get into it later. But starting with 2020, in order to graduate from Chicago Public High School, you either have to have a college acceptance letter, an acceptance into a gap year program, acceptance into a trades or apprenticeship program, or military acceptance enlistment letter. You have to have one of these things in order to graduate from high school.
Or what?
You don't get a
No
diploma.
diploma.
Even if you're an A student? and
Yep.
This is Chicago?
Yep.
Yes.
Man, I'm not moving here.
Well,
No, you have to move here and help.
Oh.
That's
Stop
right.
that.
Thank you. Don't avoid
That's
it.
why
Get
we're here
involved
now.
in it.
Aren't there others?
Is that Rahm Emanuel?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, Rahm
This might be
Emanuel.
the first.
Yeah, it could come elsewhere, that's for sure.
I'm only aware of this being done in Chicago. I mean, I'm sure, you know, other cities may want to follow suit. I don't know if they're going to be able to pull it off or not. I mean, it seems to me if you completed all your requirements for high school now, they can hold you back.
But this is approved.
It's been approved. Yeah.
Then this is a couple of things that are happening in other areas. I think that come from Pat Elder?
Yes.
Okay. So the Oregon Department of Education recently endorsed the Oregon National Guard's credit proficiency program. In New Jersey, the ASVAB can now replace the state high school exit exam if you get a score of 31. Yeah.
31 is the lowest they'll allow. You guys probably know that. It's equivalent to 8th grade English and math.
Cool. And the Texas Senate Bill 1843 requires all high schools in Texas to offer the ASVAB or a similar vocational aptitude test. You know, but the beauty of the ASVAB is that, you know, the military pays for it, the schools and administer it, the schools save some money.
And there was another one. Another law in Texas. SB 1152 allows high school, this is from Texas also, it allows high school kids to receive up to 4 excused absences from school when pursuing enlistment in any Army branch. And it provides additional opportunity to take the ASVAB at a MEP station.
And we have a growing number of military schools and charter military schools. In Illinois, there's 6, and all of those 6 are in Chicago. 6 military academies. And you know, part of what parents go through, because there's so many problems in Chicago public schools, is they look at the military school as a possible alternative to the neighborhood school. And the sad thing is that looking at like academic proficiency just based on the SAT, the military schools, with one exception, I think Phoenix got like 44% proficiency, but the rest of them are really kind of poor, like 11%, 15%. So they're not, compared to the selective enrollment schools in Chicago, they're not anywhere near performing.
Can I just add one thing?
Yep.
The other thing that that we saw in Chicago when new military academies were open, it was not only that they were getting money from the Department of Defense to run the programs, but to build the schools in themselves, they use applications money. Whereas right now, states like our state has been in a financial mess that we don't have money to build in schools. Where military academies have been able to do is just get senators involved and allocate funding to build new schools, to provide additional resources through applications. And the other part with charter schools is in a lot of states that are not regulated. I mean, and in our states, we can't even file for information on request because it's going to be hard to get the information.
Yeah, just really quickly, and we have to move on. Thank you for that. And when I developed this presentation with Libby, I actually thought the Chicago military schools were charters, because in LA, we do have one military school, but it's a charter. We don't have any of our public high schools as military academies. And I was really shocked and actually chilled to hear that, because you know, charters are kind of easier to watch out for and target. When it's just, hey, the school is going to have a military academy, it's even trickier. So as charters expand with the type of administration we have, then we can also expect to see military charters proposed. Okay, so we're going to move very quickly through the end because we're behind time. Okay, so here's the Special Forces. Green Berets are being increasingly used for recruiting. That's another new trend. Basically, long story short, these Green Berets need something called battalion command time, so someone had the idea to put them in charge of recruiting battalions. And they're doing an incredible job, apparently, because they're trained in counterinsurgency, getting the support of the local population. So, yeah. So I like this quote about Colonel Crute. Roberts, okay. Captain Tim Roberts is the commander of the Newark Recruiting Company, okay. And Colonel Crute is a Special Forces officer who is credited with laying the groundwork for this ambitious strategy to reverse recruiting trends in the Northeast, which has been the most challenging environment for recruiters in the country. The head of the U.S. Army Recruiting Command said in late last year that 13 or 14 of his 44 recruiting battalions, or nearly 30%, are commanded by Special Forces officers, although the Green Berets account for only about 5% of Army personnel. So that's creepy. Okay, so girls and young women.
So again, because of a challenging recruiting environment, they're reaching out to women, and that the video that we're not going to play right now, it's one of the first we've ever seen that it features all women. And their Marines are sending in representatives to talk to coaches of women's athletic teams. They're looking particularly for cyber skills. The Navy's featuring women in commercials and print media. And of course, we all know that a lot of the branches have opened fields to women that they haven't done before.
Yeah, so the Marines, I'm sorry we can't play it, because the Marines actually made their very first recruiting commercial that's all females. Immigration reform, I think Jesus touched on this really well earlier. We really do have to watch what's happening in Congress with immigration reform, because they do want to stick military service in there, and this is going to be hugely important. You can see how excited the former 22nd Secretary of the Army is about immigration reform that allows immigrants to naturalize through the military. It's hard to predict what's going to happen under current conditions, but we have to keep watching. Military Opportunity Days. All right. Okay, sorry. This is something else that they're starting up in the Northeast New Jersey, where they've had a really tough time recruiting, apparently, so they're trying different things. This one doesn't seem that exciting to me, but, and they don't know yet if it's showing success, but basically they're 45-minute presentations at high schools across the state with the ultimate goal of presenting to every public school student in the state. Okay, the results so far have been promising enough for the recruiting command to expand it into other regions.
And of course, there's the Department of Defense involvement in promoting STEM, which is science, technology, engineering, and math. So, you know, that's a big thing now. But I think what's really important to point out is that their STEM, the science that they're focusing on is the science needed to deploy drones and build weapons. You know, they're not looking at biology or ecology or botany. They're looking at technical skills. I'm not going to read these, but initially when we planned out this presentation, we wanted to look at it from what's presented on the Department of Defense, what their official policy is, and then what's actually happening on the ground. And we actually had the benefit of a woman who's a VFP member who is just retired from the Air Force after 20 years, and she still knows 2 recruiters. This came in really at the last minute. We just forwarded a bunch of questions, and because, as you all know, in anything, there's sometimes a disconnect between what is official policy and what's happening on the ground. And so these are some of the red is the answers that they gave. Yeah, any misgivings about recruiting women? Oh no, the SHARP program is really working.
What's the SHARP program?
It's an acronym. It's their response to the sexual assault issue. And would a draft help recruiting? Yes, I believe it would. I can't quite see.
I don't understand that.
Anyway, yeah. So that.
It also help us.
Yeah. Anyway, we thought those were interesting. Okay, that is it.